Hey guys, Tammy here. And today I want to talk about when it all becomes too much in child custody. Now, I know a lot of times when I talk to people, they're feeling very overwhelmed. They're feeling very frustrated, very hopeless. The anxiety, the stress, just that ongoing negative emotional state can be really overwhelming for the vast majority of people. Now, we're going to talk about this, but before we do, please hit like if you like this content so that you're notified as new videos are released. What happens when you get into this state where you feel so hopeless and drained and you just don't know if you can take one more ounce? Well, guess what? That's when you're the most easy to manipulate, right? And what happens, I find, is we almost start to get to a point where we feel comfortable in that state because it becomes so frequent when you're in a relationship with a high conflict person, or you have been, or you're co-parenting with them, or whatever your situation is at this stage. And we start to feel that way so much of the time that it almost starts to feel like it is the way to be in the world and that there isn't any alternative. That can really plunge you into a state of hopelessness. So what can you do? Well, I can tell you that the first thing that you have to do is really fix your mindset. That's where it all starts, okay? But by saying that, I don't mean that there isn't anything practical you can do, and we're going to talk about that. But you have to understand that all of this originates in your mind, right? Because thoughts become feelings, become actions. And so if you're relying on your thoughts before you take action, and you've got someone in your life who is that sort of manipulative, controlling, abusive person, then it's going to be really hard for you to get your thoughts first into a positive state to where then you can take action, where that changes your feelings and allows you to take action. By saying that, I'm not saying that you shouldn't try to shift your mind and listen to positive things and do what you can to uplift yourself. That's all true. But sometimes it's actually the physically taking action that will help to change our mindset, because it changes our physiology. Okay. And you've heard me, talk about this before. If you've listened to me any length of time, it's sort of like when you are moving through your world and you're down and you're sad and your shoulders are down and you're moving through in this negative way versus holding yourself up. One of the things I talk to clients about a lot is the Superman pose, right? If you go out and Google this and look at the scientific information, this has a physiological effect on your body. And it increases your testosterone, it decreases cortisol, your stress hormone, and by large percentages, okay? Up above 50. I can't remember the exact figures, but above 50 for sure. Above 50%, it increases it. It increases the testosterone, which is what puts you in your power, and it decreases the cortisol, which is your stress hormone. One of the things to start to understand is how important your physiology becomes in your battle against your high conflict person that you're dealing with, because their main motive is to get into your emotions, to get into your thoughts, to get into that psychological mindset piece of it. And yes, you do want to try to do things to shift your mindset, like I said, but it can also start with your physiology. So, you can control what time you go to bed, what time you get up. You can control whether you exercise every day. You can control whether you're putting on clothes that make you feel good and powerful and confident. You can control whether you take a shower and brush your teeth and do all these day-to-day things. Some people might say, really, we've sunk to that level? I can tell you, when I first went through my divorce, honestly, a lot of days just getting a shower was a challenge. It really was. And, I tell people I was a crumpled heap on the bathroom floor. And I literally mean that. And there are a lot of days moving forward that were just as hard as that because of the constant interaction with my ex regarding the kids, right? This isn't a person, if you have children, that is just going to magically disappear in your life. This is a person that you're going to have to continue to deal with over and over until the children are grown. And, my children are grown, and I can tell you there's still some interaction, not as frequent, not as involved, thank goodness, but it's still there. So if you can start to do things that are going to push you in your physical side, it will help your emotional side. I can give you an example from my own life. I lost Thomas 6 months ago. And so one of the things for me is getting up and getting out and being social, right? I don't feel like it. I don't want to. But if I don't, what I know happens is I sink further into that abyss, right? Because I've isolated myself. And not that there isn't something to be said for being alone and recharging, and all those things can be important, especially if you're introverted. I happen to be more extroverted. But being out and being with people that I know are going through the similar things to what I'm going through, people who can understand my process and all of that, I find if I force myself to get up and out and do those things, I feel better. Even though I didn't want to go. It's like, oh, I didn't want to go, but I feel better. But if I sit home and I focus on my pain and I focus on, the loss of Thomas, or I focus on, a lot of the memories and that type of thing, it makes it harder. And, again, I talked about this not too long ago about where, part of your high conflict ex's, job, part of their way of moving through the world and their manipulation is by keeping you focused on them, right? So if you're focused on them, you're not focusing on you. You really want to use your physiology, your physical nature to help you pull yourself out of this negative mindset. And, so I think that, and, we don't always, we tend to think about that in the form of like maybe exercise or whatever, which is important. But sometimes it's a matter of getting up and out, going out with a friend, going out, doesn't mean you have to go on a date or do whatever, but just hanging out with people that share your values, other people that are going through what you're going through. I think community is so important in this situation because if we're dealing with a high conflict person, narcissists in particular, a lot of their approach to relationships tends to be to isolate us because we're easier to control that way. So if you're not getting the support of people around you, makes it a lot easier for you to buy into all the crap they're trying to put in your head, right? But when you get out and you start to connect with other people who are struggling in their custody case, who are going through a divorce, who are dealing with a high conflict ex, who are dealing with a narcissistic personality, you start to go, oh my goodness, I'm not by myself. Oh my goodness, there are patterns to this. Oh my goodness, my ex isn't the only person doing this. But when you're isolating yourself, it tends to feel like you're the only one and you're not alone. And so this is why the community is so important in helping pull you out of the negative place that you're in and keep you from relapsing into that place, because that sort of becomes a comfort zone. It's negative, but it still becomes comfortable because it's familiar. It's what we know, as opposed to being in this place of empowerment and confidence, which is not as familiar if we're coming out of that kind of relationship. So community is very important. It's one of the core pieces of my group coaching program. If you'd like to learn more about my coaching services, please go to divorceuniversityonline.com/VIP-coaching. I'd love to chat with you, figure out if there's a way that I can support you on this journey, and I will see you guys next time.